Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is I, Queen J Lotus, King Sun Kiss, coming at y'all right, quick, right, fast, certainly for the full moon in Leo messages for the earth signs. And yes, this is being recorded and hopefully posted on the day of the new moon in Aquarius. But that's all right, okay? Because it's all in alignment, honey. Aquarius is the sister sign to Leo. All right, so just hold that thought. And I'll be right with y'all on them messages too. But let's stay focused, honey. So, for you good old earth signs, I have some earthy material to assist y'all in picking y'all's collective, y'all's pal, y'all's group. Okay, so for group one, over to the left of them, we have this orange glass diamond. Okay, we have an orange glass diamond. And over to the right of them, we have a rose quartz wire wrapped bodice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's the bodice silhouette, if you will, of a woman's body, naked. And it is made of rose quartz and it is wire wrapped. All right. So group one for y'all's intro messages to help y'all pick y'all's group. Okay. So if you're resonating with group one, you may resonate with messages that are coming up concerning, of course, the sacral chakra as it is concerned with the color orange. Also, I'm hearing throwing stones in glass houses. Okay. So you may have people addressing you. You may be addressing yourself like, am I somebody that's been throwing stones in glass houses? Or you may be noticing a hell of a lot of people that do such. And it may be calling you to reflect on yourself and see how you're carrying yourself. What type of decisions are you making? Where your values at? That's got you around all of these people. And, or, what is it supposed to be exactly saying to you? Now also being the fact that it's the shape of a diamond. I'm hearing diamond in the rough. I'm also hearing and seeing diamond from the Players Club. Okay. So we may have like some messages surrounding sex as a whole, sex workers, sexual trauma, sexual abuse, sexual liberation, what is it actually, sex life, tantric shit, as well as the frequency of enjoyment and the frequency of pleasure. And it could be a lot of things that you all are needing to know and realize and learn and help yourself deprogram from, maybe even as it concerns false senses of pleasure. Things that you may have been taught to enjoy, and or at some point you learned and or taught yourself to enjoy and be pleasured by, but in actuality it's not something that you should be pleasured by. So what's coming up with it also specifically is how nervousness and excitement create the same types of bodily reactions. So, also because of a lot of toxic shit, the frequency of fear can, for instance, cause someone to get horny. Their body, like their mind may say, no, I don't want to do that. But their body is responding in a way that is getting aroused. And it's because of somewhere in the person's experience, the frequencies of fear and excitement got distorted, got corrupted in some type of way. So if people scare you and it makes you horny, or someone, for instance, you think about fighting and fucking cycles of toxic relationships, that's a part of what it is. Because people who are committed to toxic fighting and fucking types of relationships, their frequency of fear and excitement has been corrupted in some type of way. More than likely, it's been corrupted through some form of sexual abuse and or sexual trauma in itself that ends up causing a disconnect in what the mind and the soul wants versus how the body naturally responds to certain things. So, that being said, with the bodily things being a parallel here, a lot of you may end up resonating with both groups. Okay. But for those of you that are resonating with group one, those are the intro messages that I hope are allowing you all to be able to decide if that's going to be the group that you indulge in primarily. Okay. Now moving on over to the right of them, over to collective two, which is rose quartz feminine bodice wire wrapped. So the messages that are coming up for y'all, I'm hearing posh prisons. So if you've in whatever way looked up or been looking up and realizing that you've been living in a posh prison, meaning you could realize that you've been dealing with financial abuse, or you could realize you've been crying in a Bentley as opposed to a Camry, but you still crying entirely too fucking much, which essentially means that no matter what material wealth or material beauty, superficiality, or whatever that you've come into, it hasn't been enough to truly make you happy. It hasn't been enough to truly heal you, and or you haven't been using it properly to really pour into the things that is really in alignment with your heart and soul. And what I'm hearing is something coming up. It's a vision of Cardi B talking to her sister Hennessy about her needing to make sure that she make people proud, that she make the family proud, that she make their parents proud. And what Spirit is coming up to say about that and with that is messages about being a slave to other people's expectations, becoming a slave to making other people proud, as opposed to making yourself proud, as opposed to living in the liberation and in the confidence and in the true pursuit of happiness, of finding what it is that makes you happy and successful at the same time, and therefore makes you proud, and therefore is inspiring to other people, and inevitably facilitates this fruitful multiplicative frequency and cycling of everybody being made proud, inevitably, because they make themselves proud. So everybody don't have to try that hard to bend themselves into a pretzel to get acceptance from other people and say and get applause and all this shit from other people, because it'll inevitably happen, because it all starts at home. It all starts with you. And think about the concept of home. Home is both internal and it's also where you inevitably come from in the materialistic sense, in the environmental sense. So y'all may likely be called to differentiate between your internal sense of home versus the home that you come from, and therefore also applying that to your spiritual body versus your physical body, and bringing those things back into integration and alignment so that you can truly start living for you instead of living a life that is obsessing about whether or not other people are satisfied with what you do, because certain people ain't ever gonna be satisfied. And if you ain't ever satisfied with you, those are the only types of people that you're going to notice. They may not be the only types of people that you attract, but they'll be the only types of people that you notice, because that's a part of yourself that you keep resonating and choosing to give all your energy to the most. So you get out of it what you put into it. If all you put into yourself is the investment into what's negative about you or what you feel like is unsatisfactory, again, you may not only attract people who only see the worst in you, but you will only see the people who are only committed to seeing the worst in you. Child, so again, group two, those are y'all's intro messages. And I hope that it is assisting you all properly and being able to choose the primary group for you. And without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into the specificities of these reads. Greetings, sunshines and sunnies of group one. And without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into the cricks and crannies of these cards. So y'all know y'all chose the orange glass diamond. And y'all's cards that y'all have here are the Empress from the Sun and Moon Tarot and the Ghosted card in reverse from the Neon Love Oracle. So immediately what I'm picking up here for you all is the lot of you, if you're not a literal orphan, you have likely been a spiritual orphan and or a emotional orphan or mental orphan. And to elaborate on what that means and how it may resonate for you is, even if your mother and or your parents were in your life, they abandoned you emotionally. They neglected you emotionally so much to the point that it was emotional abandonment, and or the same thing as it concerns the mental of it all. So this could show up as you being sensitive and or you being more sensitive than most, which can show up as you being more empathetic, sympathetic, you being more aware of how things affect people emotionally and mentally, and why it is important to be aware of those things, and why it is important to be aware of how it affects us, why it is important to be mindful of those things, and empathetic as a lifestyle, as a being, period. And you likely were mentally and or, like I said, emotionally abandoned because of those things. And as it hits in the spiritual sense, this could show up as being ostracized by church groups and or churches, and or being ostracized by spiritual groups in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be church. This could also still show up in the parental sense as you end up either showing up differently than what their religious and or spiritual beliefs agree with. So on one hand, their religious and or spiritual beliefs, they may not agree with homosexuality or queer identity. You may be queer, you may be homosexual. So, however you interchange it or umbrella it, whatever, what have you. Another way is, let's say your parents are Muslim and you are a female identifying woman, cisgender, you identify with your sex in a way that is feminine, and you don't walk around with a hijab on all the time. You like to wear revealing clothing. You live your life however you decide to live your life, and not in a way that requires you to be micromanaging who you make eye contact with. You not, laying down with men that make it a requirement that you barricade yourself in the back room when company comes in unless they need you to serve or something. Okay? You are something different. than what they want to claim about their religion or spirituality one way or another. And as a result of that, you get ostracized. I'm picking up on people that who have either were teenage mothers and or had babies out of wedlock. I'm picking up on people who may have been sexually abused at young ages and or may have been caught having sex at young ages by your parents or someone of the church, and you were ostracized and demonized because of that. And I'm picking up that in situations where like that, it's bringing up that video of the girl who was saying, I think it was the Thanksgiving program, and she was saying that she was thankful for her stepmama because her stepmama listened to her more than her mama do. And then they all started gathering around demonizing her and putting oil and other things on her. And so Spirit is clarifying and confirming, hey, allegedly, but this is how it's channeling through. Spirit is clarifying and confirming that they started doing some form of humiliation ritual on her, a casting out of sorts, which was a ritualistic casting out, a ritualistic communication also of her being a demon, uh, aligning that with her, like who she is. And something of the sort was done to you all, and or at least a good bit of you all. And if not in that literal sense, something parallel and or adjacent to that was done to you all. Even if like you were kicked out because you got pregnant, or you were beat with a Bible because you had sex, or because you were gay, or because you were just seen holding hands with someone of the same sex, or something of the sort like that. Okay, and so that creates this frequency of orphanism. Hmm. So that's also why you have a ghosted card here in reverse, because it's like mm, this interesting disconnect and trauma of being around, having to live around and amongst someone who does not see you, who is committed to not seeing you, who is committed to not embracing you, and it channels like their ghost. So this gonna sound weird, but I'm letting God use me, and I know it's gonna resonate accordingly. This is lent towards recreating a trauma of chasing people who may make themselves physically present for the sake of making you feel invisible. Somewhere, parental figures or elder figures in your village went out their way to make you feel invisible, went out of their way to make themselves seen the most by you while making you feel invisible intentionally. And it's facilitated this ghost type frequency, and it's in certain ways facilitated you all either becoming what you despise in certain ways and or on the brink of becoming what you despise in certain ways. And you may be trying to figure out how to get out of this cycle. And it's channeling the song by Beyonce, Haunted slash Ghost. I know if I'm haunting you, you must be haunting me. Hmm. It's very interesting. It's very weird. I never thought about something like that, but damn, it makes so much sense. And like certain things that I've observed. So yeah. And what Spirit is coming through to say is it's a call to action to make a drastic decision to be more present with yourself. That's a lot of what y'all's Leo full messages are lending to. Yeah, Spirit is saying very simply stated. Very simply stated. It may be, more simply stated than done in certain ways due to habits, but that doesn't make it impossible. So the thing about Leo energy is that it don't matter who is on Leo's side. Leo gonna bet on themselves, period. Even if they doing some shit that don't make no sense, that's totally fucking foolish and out the damn way and out of fucking line. They are going to bet on themselves. Soldier Boy is channeling through with that being said, and Soldier Boy is a Leo. And regardless of whatever or whoever think whatever about Soldier Boy, downplay his music, his rapping, his accolades or whatever, Soldier Boy gonna always stand on business about himself, his accomplishments, the things that he's done. He gonna always stand on business about himself, even if he by himself. So, child, like they said, simply stated, that's that's what's giving y'all's Leo full moon messages that are coming through for y'all to get to that point of declaring and demanding, even to yourselves, declaring and demanding to yourselves specifically that you're gonna stand on business by yourself, even if you by yourself. Okay. And a part of that, a large part of that, is you all doing so in the way of mothering yourself, recognizing that standing on business about yourself in such the way that Soldier Boy does is a form of mothering yourself. Just being sure to call on the divine realm for divine direction, as well as your higher self for divine direction of your protection and providing for yourself, and your nurturing and your maternal protection of yourself. Because protection and provision is often, more often in certain ways, a masculine thing. But there are also certain protection and providing aspects that are feminine energy as well. So again, calling upon, and you can specify, right? So I declare and demand, and or I call upon the divine feminine to divinely direct my protection and providing for myself. I'll say it again. I declare and demand my divine feminine to divinely direct my protection and providing for myself. And or you can begin that affirmation with I call upon my divine feminine for divine direction of my protection and providing for myself. Okay. So yeah, dog. Yeah. That being said, spirit emphasizes those messages that came out about the maternal trauma, the spiritual trauma, the abandonment specifically in those ways. It's for you all to be spiritually validated, as well as this is a way that spirit is also clarifying a a divine feminine method of protection and provision, which is the frequency of validation. So spirit validated y'all's trauma by those messages that I spit that, may have resonated and or resonated with, y'all's experience. So that's also a call to action for y'all to divinely, femininely protect and provide for yourselves by validating yourselves more through that validation of simply, acknowledging your own experience as the truth. Also, then following up with the aftercare of compassion and patience and grace for yourself, calling those things back for yourself because it's likely that in people's reaction to your trauma and people's actions of traumatizing you, they made you responsible for giving them compassion and grace and therefore teaching you to abandon yourself. And that's why the ghosted card is also in reverse because abandoning yourself is not actually real. It's a choice that you've been taught to make. And once you become aware, you can choose to find your way back to yourself. You may not be able to convince your parents, your elders, the church, the spiritual group, or whatever to accept you and embrace you or take accountability or whatever, what have you. But you can always call yourself back to yourself, call the clarity and the intimacy of yourself back to yourself and find your way back to yourself and re embrace yourself. hmm And that inevitably allows Beyonce's song Find Your Way Back to channel through. Find your way back. Big, big world, but you got it, baby. Find your way back. Don't let this life drive you crazy. Find your way back. Yes, God. And
And
so,
you know what's
honey,
crazy? Spirit channeled Mimi Faust from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta to me earlier. And I didn't even think about the fact that she's a Capricorn. And as I was channeling off those messages, I didn't think about I didn't think about how I even thought about her this morning. Like it didn't occur to me any of that I just said is in coherence with the Capricorn that is Mimi. But you see how divine timing works, right? Because in the midst of me recording this, my buddy who I was talking about Mimi too so happened to responded to the last thing that I said about it in the midst of me recording this. And it wasn't until I got to looking for a video of Mimi talking about her mama abandoning her for Scientology that I remembered Mimi is a Capricorn. ah, yes. And so, what is being clarified to me as something that they want y'all to take away from that Mimi said in one of her interviews about her recovery is finding therapy and like how she knew she needed therapy, but for a long time she didn't know how to go about it, where to find it, how to do all of the things. And so it may be also a call to action for y'all to evaluate more, like do your own research and find more clips and interviews, the documentary that Mimi is in talking about her experience and things of that nature, and even like observing other people's experience of similar things who have found some sort of rehabilitation and recovery, and take inspiration from their stories, take notes from their stories, and definitely I encourage therapy. you know, and there are depths to therapy as well. You can get spiritual treatment as well as medical, psychiatric, as well as therapy. You can be well rounded in your treatment. It doesn't have to be And I feel like this is important to say too when it comes to these certain types of abuse and abandonment, that it doesn't have to be just one form of refuge. It doesn't have to be just one form of treatment, of healing. You can use the spirituality, you can use the medical, you can use the psychiatric, okay? You can put pass here and there if it's not, you know what I'm saying, if you don't have a problem. Okay? But if it's a problem, you might got a problem, okay? I'm not encouraging any substance abuse. What I am saying is it's a time and a place for everything. And I do recognize that religion and even certain spiritual groups that operate as organizations and or covens for people to serve and have community, they often end up falling into those toxic religious ways of practicing that emphasize and encourage that, like, it's got to be one or the other. It's got to be this or that. When we are dual and multidimensional, like I said, you need a little bit of everything. Okay, and it's a time and a place for everything. Moderation is key. Abuse is unacceptable. Hmm. So, again, having authentic spiritual practices, and again, it starts at home. Yeah, I'm hearing "Let's Start Over." Start over. The song "Start Over" by Beyonce. Hmm. Starting over with yourself and your relationship with your spirit, and then spirituality, and go from there. Don't try to eat the whole burger in one bite. Take it bit by bit. Cut it into pieces if you need to. Eat the bread first and the meat second and the cheese and lettuce last if you need to. However you need to get through it. And trust yourself to know on the other side that you can be healed. You don't have to be the characterization of your struggle and your trauma. The trauma, the ostracization, all that, it don't have to be your identity. It don't have to be your character. You are more than that. And you got to give yourself more credit than that. And therapy is also a great method. And of course, there's often a process to finding the right therapist, because in any organization, environment, whatever, what have you, just like they say about moving, any place, city, state, town, country, continent, or whatever that you move to has a hood, has a suburb, has a spooky haunted place, and a place that's, don't have all of that obvious hoopla going on or whatever. So just like there can be predatory pastors, there can also be predatory therapists. That's not to scare you. That's just to be real about what you're dealing with. And it's to be real about humanity. Some of y'all may get triggered. But just as it's true that there are fucked up pastors, it's also true that there are pastors that are authentic in their practice, and they even recognize what's wrong with, certain corruptions of the Bible, and what's wrong with the way that a lot of churches and religions and spiritualities are run and whatnot. And they are the change that needs to be seen. So for some of you, it may be meant for you to find your way back to a church, but allow yourself to naturally find your way back. Start with yourself first. Don't just, take just what I said and be like, okay, let me start looking for a church. No, again, start at home. Start at your internal home with yourself, and allow yourself to come to your own conclusions about what different things mean to you. Reread the Bible for yourself. Reread different parts of the Bible for yourself. Reread different and or start reading different spiritual texts, religious texts. Explore the spectrum of religion and the spectrum of spirituality, and pinpoint the things that are consistent and the things that are not, and allow yourself to determine what it means to you and what is best for you. And again, I recommend doing this while also, if you will and can, and when and if you can. I'm gonna say when and if, okay? Because we talk up over here. Okay? We speak life into the best over here. So yeah, when you are able, also implement therapy, and be clear. There are therapists that do content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. So even if you can't find a therapist right now, or uh, for whatever reason, whether it's money or just lack of knowledge, also know that there's free content from therapists online. Like for instance, there are I can't remember the names of the channels right now, but there are therapists who do movie reviews on YouTube. There are therapists who do show reviews and who do pop culture commentary, respond to hot topics and stuff that's in the media, and they respond to it from a therapist perspective. They respond to it using their competency as therapists. So those are some starts as well in the midst of you, because again, there are spiritual workers like myself, and then there are other different types of spiritual workers as well online that do content. And again, explore the spectrum
and find what speaks the most true to your spirit, the truth of your spirit, not who everybody else and the superficials of social media is telling you to be, but go within about it. Call on your higher self, call on the truth of yourself, call on your shadow self to make themselves clear to you. And again, call on your divine feminine and your divine masculine to divinely direct your perspective of yourself, as well as, again, your protection and providing for yourself. And like I said, in the meantime, in between time, be exposing yourself to the psychological aspects of those things as well. Also, start exposing yourself. And again, don't try to swallow the whole burger at once. Take it bit by bit as you can. That's a part of being compassionate and empathetic and patient with yourself. Taking it as slow as you need to, okay? And as swift as you need to. If you get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm moving a little too slow, let me pick up my pace a little bit. I think I want to, because let the excitement lead you and not the fear of being left behind or the fear of missing out speed you up. Let excitement speed you up, okay? And let wisdom ground you. Let excitement speed you up. Let wisdom ground you. Another word for grounding is balance, okay? Because too much of anything is not good. So you want to be excited, you want to be enthusiastic, but you don't want to be hastily overzealous, right? Okay, so again, there are also medical people online who do commentaries and content create and use their competencies and their gifts in correlation with those competencies of their training that respond to what's going on in the media, where they respond to different personal depths and experiences that they've had and that they've observed and taken in and that they've treated with other people. So just putting up, some other things out there for you to understand. It's so much more to life in the world than just the fucked up people and communities that you've experienced. And Spirit is calling y'all back to the purity of yourselves, the divine matriarch that is within yourselves, so that y'all can remember the good of who you are and even some of the good of where you may come from, so that you can truly heal. And also, it's a song channeling again, find your way back, so that you can find your way back. And this is in a spiritual sense because, like messages were coming through, y'all were corrupted. Y'all were one way before, and then somebody came in and totally misdirected it and corrupted it. But it's still in y'all. Y'all just have to make the decision to go back and get it. And so again, it's all this encouragement to, again, start with yourself, start reparenting yourself, and in the process, educate yourself more on the spectrum of religion, the spectrum of spirituality, the spectrum of medicine, and as well as I'm hearing recovery, other people's recovery. Expose yourself to more about other people's recovery, not just stories about the trauma that they experienced like yours, but them actually recovering from it. Expose yourself to more people who have either recovered and or are in a real prosperous state of recovery, as opposed to constantly giving all of your attention to people who are steadily dwelling in bullshit and making their trauma their personality. hmm So, child, I truly, 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 truly hope that not only it helped, but I hope that I was able to put it in language and organization and empathy and compassion that y'all were able to resonate with for real, for real. Because this some deep, dark shit that we really spoke on here and came face to face with here. And it's a reality that, certain things are easier said than done, though possible. And like old girl Lauren Hill is channeling through, some shit can also be so simple, but often we rather make it hard just because that's what we've been taught to be used to.
And Spirit is channeling through to note that what's important to recognize about that as well is that, think about that, right? It could all be so simple, but we rather make it hard based on what we used to. And if what you've gotten used to is deadbeat energy, deadbeat and redundantly combative, ostracizing, misdirected energy, so it comes with the cross also to bear of having to practice what you preach. So if and when you get to the point of feeling like, oh, if they wanted to love me, they would. If they wanted to show their love in these ways, they would. If they felt like I deserved it, they would. If they felt like they wanted to, regardless of what they feel like I deserve or regardless of what they want me to have, if they wanted to, if they really, 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 really wanted to and or had the will to, they would. And therefore, if you truly want to heal, and even more so, if you value the concepts of healing, emphasis on value, because regardless of what you want, if you don't value it and or if you don't value who you want to be with it, in it, you're not going to grasp hold to your will to make it happen wholeheartedly. And this is why, too, I'm pretty sure, and let me not even say it. I know that a lot of y'all gonna end up watching the second group too, because that group in the intro messages had some things to say about acquiring money and acquiring a lot of the material and like superficial things that are called success, but still not feeling successful, still not feeling fulfilled. And that's a large part of why certain things are being so emphasized in this particular group. And it's because a lot of y'all are having to fill that void within yourselves before you're crying in a Bentley, wondering why you're not happy. After everything that you've accomplished and all the money you've made, all the work you've done, not to mention the bad habit that earth signs tend to have as a trauma response, overworking themselves, chasing money, chasing the bag, and then you get the bag and you realize that same trauma is still there. And you crying in a Bentley over the same shit that you was crying over when you had the Camry, when you had the Accord, when you had the Pinto, the Volvo, the Crown Vic, whatever it was, or whatever it is for y'all right now. And so a lot of y'all have experienced a lot of conflict and rejection, and a lot of y'all may be still experiencing some levels of conflict and rejection that are either recreating and or triggering the trauma that you've been through. But a large part of that is so that you all can make the decision for real to not only accept that life's rejection is God's protection, but also gain value for yourself. And not just gain it, but reclaim your value over yourself, regardless of what anyone else is doing or not doing. Maintaining unconditional self value. Yes, honey. Because as I know we're gonna get into in this group too, child, you all, you play your cards right, you're gonna be extremely glad that certain blessings were delayed until you reparented yourself and until you got these things together that are being brought up in this reading. Because if spirit was to drop these blessings and this load of money and all of this that y'all want and or think y'all want in y'all lap right now, all y'all would do is be crying in a Bentley over the same shit that you was crying on, but also giving it all away to the same people that you work so hard to get away from. And I know that may be hard to grasp right now for some of y'all. Like, no, I wouldn't do that. But it's going to take for you to have to go fishing, baby, for you to really grasp what's being put down for real, for real. But honey, as I just kind of implied, I believe it's about that time where I remind y'all. You give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Y'all go fishing, baby. And with all that being said, child, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe so that you can be one of the first to be back through these Queenly Quarters for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in all ways light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah. Greetings, sunshines and sunnies of group 2. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the specificities of y'all's cards. So y'all chose the rose quartz bodice wrapped in gold wire. And there was a lot of messages, well, some prominent things in y'all's intro messages about crying in a Bentley, honey. Crying in a Bentley, acquiring quite a bit of things that meant success to you at one point or something, and realizing that it hasn't been enough to truly fill in the blanks, fulfill you, all that. Also, just in group 1, there were some things that came out that paralleled and kind of integrated some of the messages. Whereas it was talks about crying in the Bentley hitting different because you're still crying over things that you were crying in the Camry or the Pinto or the Volvo over. You know what I'm saying? Basically realizing that you made all this material progress and you still got the same problems. And it's interesting how Cardi B channeled in y'all's intro messages about a conversation she was having with her sister about making people proud, making the family proud, making their mama proud and all of that. And that's come up for y'all here too, of course, like in the ways of y'all needed to be reconnected, and this realization that y'all spent so much time trying to make other people proud. And you done a lot of things, perhaps for some of y'all, many of y'all, you've done a lot of things to fulfill other people's dreams and other people's dreams for you. You're putting money in other people's pockets. You're doing a lot of things that other people are really just satisfied with you doing because they can tell they people, oh, my friend do this and that. My friend know these people. My son do that. My son performing here. My son performing there. My daughter in a show here, my daughter in a show there, but they don't truly value what it is that you do. They only care enough about it for the conversations that they have to flex with the people that they want to flex for. And it's this cycling of that type of thing. Being a slave to other people's egos, being a slave to what other people want to see and what other people can get from whatever it is that you're doing, as opposed to actually fulfilling yourself, let alone even figuring out what self-fulfillment actually is for you. Because it's just been so much, do this for me, for me, for me, for me, make sure you make this happen for us, remember who you do it for, remember where you come from. It's one thing to remember where you come from, and it's another thing to become a slave to the struggle and to become a slave to people who will never know what the fuck you truly do and what it truly means and what it's truly about, because they have successfully convinced you that they are the pitiful masters. So what that means is they've created these pity parties of why you need to do this, that, and the third for them, which has made you a slave and them the master of your fate. How you letting, and it's bringing up my 600-pound life. Letting someone, and it's no tea, no shade, just take the meat and spit out the bone, okay? How you letting somebody from a wheelchair bully you? That's where you have to tap back into yourself and figure out who done put a chain around your brain that's caused you to put wire around your body. And just because it's gold, it's okay. Just because the chain that's holding you back, that's linking you to some board, some plank that's keeping you worn, tied, and through, just because the chain is made of gold, you're okay with being a slave. Just because the bars on the cell are made of gold, 24 karat, you okay with being a prisoner. You're still a prisoner, though. How about not being a prisoner? Which gets us to the cricks and crannies of y'all's cards, which y'all have the Princess of Wands in reverse and losing interest in reverse. So, y'all, okay. So with the Princess of Wands in reverse, this is also known as the Page of Wands. So in general, it has to do with, so it's earth of fire. It's earth energy in the form of fire. And it represents playfulness, enthusiasm, which is something that came up in the first group too about enthusiasm. Just as it was like integrating the messages, it was these messages about enthusiasm. So interesting. But yeah, enthusiasm, willing to try new things, confronting inner obstacles, and the subduing of the tiger signifies release from fear and obstructions. So those are the symbolisms of the card, period. But when it's in reverse, of course, you're dealing with some issues outside of that. So it definitely makes sense why a lot of group one's messages are integrated with group twos, because that's sacral chakra issue. So, but the way it's coming up for those of you that primarily resonate with this, and even if you're coming from the first group, it's still going, the dots gonna connect, okay? So what this is having gotten caught up in a loop of practicing self-love through the sacral. But the sacral chakra is not the love chakra. The sacral chakra is the emotional chakra, but it's not the frequency of self-love. The etheric heart chakra is the frequency of self-love, which is what the rose quartz stone and or energy element frequency is in association with. So green, the color green, and earthy, like as far as like the flowers, plants and things of that nature, is the femininity of earth, which is associated with also the heart chakra, okay, which is a love chakra in general, relationships, things of that nature. But rose quartz, the rose quartz chakra is the etheric love and relationship chakra, which has to do specifically with self-love, which the first group had a lot to do with returning back to self. So it makes hella sense as we get here, okay? So, child, a lot of you have thought that you were loving yourself by going by the code of conduct, the status quo. Get the bag, get the money, get the designer, get all of these things that are attached to the American dream of it all. And when you finally are able to pour it back into the family, then everything is gonna be okay. Or when you're finally able to pay off debts, or this is how it's coming up specifically, right? When I get this car, then I'm gonna be happy. When I get this house, then I'm gonna be happy. When I pay this bill, then I'm gonna be happy. When I get this job, then I'm gonna be happy. And it's like, the more you get this next thing, oh, then I'm gonna be happy. It's one other thing. Well, oh, now I need to get this to make me happy. Now I need to pay this person off to make me happy. Now I need to throw this party for these people to make me happy and make me feel fulfilled. Now I gotta buy this person a house to make me happy. all these things further getting you away from yourself. All of these things overacting the sacral chakra. And that's a tricky thing about trauma, because it's a common trauma response to run and dissociate, disconnect, and all of those things through the sacral. And therefore, either overindulging in your own pleasure and enjoyment, or overindulging in facilitating other people's pleasure and enjoyment. And it's giving that it's going both ways for a lot of you all, but there is specific necessity to highly acknowledge and unpack how a lot of you all have been toxically trying to reclaim your power and your sense of self-fulfillment and self-enjoyment through facilitating other people's enjoyment and pleasure. So it's this excessive feeling like you can only be pleasured. You can only know that you are fulfilled, successful. You feel like you can only be happy if you are making other people happy. And that's terribly unhealthy, because some motherfuckers are never truly happy. Some people are committed to being miserable. And also, you can't truly make anyone happy if you don't know what truly makes you happy. And when you're facilitating these frequencies of pleasure and enjoyment and all of that, that's for a moment. That's not true happiness. That's just making them feel good for a moment. Like the drug dealer selling crack, you know? And so, I can't lie. I'm picking up people who are artists one way or another, performing artists one way or another, especially with those messages that was coming up about like people loving to brag on y'all for how it serves them and how they want to name drop and how they like to name drop and say, oh, I know these people in the entertainment industry. I know these people that's, they do movies, they do shows, they a DJ, they a model, they a da 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 da. But they don't truly value what you do for real. They don't value your craft for real. They're not supporting you for real. They do similar things to you, but they'll butter you up for half a second, give you all these compliments and praise, attention, things that you've been deprived of from your village, just enough to get what they want, the social currency. It's giving like social and creative currency off of you all, as well as real currency. They'll butter you up enough to get some money out of you or to get a job opportunity out of you, and then you don't hear nothing else from them. When you inviting them to simply support your show, they not there. When you inviting them to simply come to your party to celebrate an accomplishment that you've had, they not there. But when it's happy hour at the club, or when you inviting them somewhere to pay for something, or you inviting them somewhere that's just a general thing and they get in free because they attached to you, then they gung ho. Then they front and center. Oh yeah, this my homegirl, this my homeboy, this my cousin, this my brother, this my son. Da, 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 da. Like on Meet the Browns, where daddy ain't want nothing to do with him until he was first draft pick or whatever draft pick he was and ended up in the NBA. Then he want to step all in the camera, all in the videos, dancing and shit, talking about this my son. This been your son all of this time. You ain't care nothing about making it known. You ain't care nothing about supporting him. He went in the gym when he was shooting. And so, in a nutshell, it's like y'all have been draining yourselves and communicating to y'all's mind, body, and souls in the universe and to other people, one, that you don't truly value yourself or what you do, and that your true pleasures and enjoyment are invaluable in general, that they don't matter. That the only thing that matters is you getting applause for how you're able to make other people orgasm. And take that multidimensionally, because I don't just mean it in a sexual sense, but for some, it may hit in a sexual sense, where there may be some of you that have too much of your sense of self-worth wrapped up in how many people you can make orgasm, or how well you can satisfy your partner in the bedroom, when they value more than that. And that's where we're getting into the losing interest card that is here in reverse too. Because a lot of you may feel like your person don't love you enough, or they don't value enough, or they are losing interest because they're not responding to you in the same ways, or they're not doing certain things that you're used to. And what Spirit is saying here is that it's not necessarily that the people who you're used to being the changes that you want to see, which means that the people who support you without you having to try so hard, the people who just fuck with you for real, the people that you honestly confide in more than the people that you perform for. You may have been noticing those people pulling back in certain ways, rerouting in certain ways, not being as verbal in certain ways like they were before. And it's not that they're losing interest, they're acting according to the fact that you're not truly showing interest in them, and you're not truly showing interest in the things that are truly true to you, because you're so busy performing for people who don't truly give a fuck about you. You're so focused, and you're so invested, dedicated, committed to satisfying and pleasuring people and facilitating enjoyment and festivities for people who wouldn't spit on you if you was on fire. You so busy giving hella hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars and this and that to people who one, may not be capable, but also a part of the reason why they're not capable is because they don't want to be. And if they were capable, they wouldn't let you know. If they were capable and if they are capable, they wouldn't let you know because they don't fuck with you for real. And in certain ways and in certain cases, they envy you and they feel power from being able to get you to give away your power for the sake of pitying them and for the way that they are able to make you feel like they are just so broken and so pitiful and can't do nothing for themselves and using all of your energy for them. And that's another part of the reason why you crying in a Bentley or whatever over the same problems that you've been had, because you keep recreating those same problems. Because for a lot of you, it's coming from parental shit. It's coming from toxic elders in your village. It's coming from not having any elders or guidance or true parents and things of that nature, and or having those there that make you the parent, that make you the provider, that make you responsible for their emotions and their bills and their pitiful ass situations and their healing that they don't ever intend to commit to. So they have convinced you, someone in your childhood upbringing has convinced you to live your life being a slave to other people's trauma responses. And a part of that being a slave to other people's trauma responses is where you think you get pleasure from pleasuring other people, when in actuality, it's a false sense of peace. And that false sense of peace can feel so euphoric. That attention that you get from that fawning can feel so euphoric because you've been so deprived, but it's not real. And so these messages from the full moon in Leo is leading y'all to, honestly, I'm hearing tower moment. There are some tower moments coming, and I ain't gonna lie, y'all, yes, multiple. There are some tower moments coming that are meant to make it clear how fun your life is not. It's meant to make it clear how everybody else has been dancing in your sacral chakra on top of your corpse, on top of your live body, on top of your higher self. People dancing all on top of your freedom. And that's why you're this beautiful glowing bodice with a golden wire wrapped around your whole being, thinking that it's so fucking rich just because you're wrapped in a prison that is 24 karat gold, not realizing it's still a fucking prison. So again, hella tower moments coming through. And that's another reason why Spirit has guided and allowed for certain people who you were using as diaries and using as charge ups to go perform for people who don't mean you no good. Spirit has allowed them to pull back, to call back their energy, to get more silent, because you need these things, you need these towers to fall so that you can get real for real. Not only about who other people are, but also about who you truly are and what these other relationships, these crowds, these audiences, these groups of people, what it truly has represented for you. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of y'all are fixing to have to start from scratch in some type of way. But it's a blessing in disguise. And for some of you, as soon as whatever happens, whatever the quote unquote loss is, you're gonna feel so relieved because you're gonna be like, well, I don't have to act no more. I don't have to act like everything is okay no more. I don't have to act like I'm just the life of the party, when in actuality, I really want to rest. I really want to sleep. I really want to just sit up and watch some movies and eat ice cream. Like, a lot of y'all may realize that the big ass house, the 50 cars, the 50 bags, the designer, the 50 friends, and all of that, that you never wanted that in the first place. And you're really fine with a 1 bedroom apartment, a simple car, and a dog. Or however the simplicity hits for you. For some of you, it may not be, a total downsize of that nature. You may just come into a realization of who allows access to your shit, amongst how to better allow your own self access to your own shit. Because, like, there are so many people who have luxury material, big ass homes, pools, boats, own hella acres of land and shit, and they're not ever home to truly enjoy it. They don't ever allow themselves to be at home to truly enjoy it. And if they are at home, they're not embracing the pool, the boats, the land. They're not embracing the trees and the lakes and all of that. They're not embracing that. They're not going outside to smell the flowers. They just sitting inside, wallowing in muck and drama and whatever else that they've been habitualized to from their childhood, because they never took any time out to stop just trying to fill the voids with false senses of pleasure and other people's pleasure, to actually get to the root of what they truly love, let alone a love for themselves. Because if you come into a love for yourself first, not only will you materialize things that you would truly love and therefore have the capacity to show love by embracing. Because just like some of these people that's come up that y'all have in y'all's lives that do truly mean you well, that you just been using as diaries and charge reports, you haven't had the capacity to truly show them love through that embrace. And that's why they have pulled back. It's not the fact that they've lost interest in them. It is not the fact that they've lost interest in you. It's the fact that they realize you don't truly have interest in them, because you don't truly have interest and what is true to you. And I don't think, child, because the way Spirit is speaking, this is really heads up messages and clarity messages for you all on what's going on, basically what it is and what it's about to be. And that's why those messages that integrated from group one to here and coming in specifically right now is it concerned the frequency of value and the frequency of will, because, and it's being reiterated here, these things and this confirmation and clarity is coming through because, and it's not so much also, it's not a whole lot of like do this and that to solve the problem. It's not a whole lot of calls to actions and like specific directions coming through for y'all, like in comparison to how readings usually go and amongst like some of the other groups. And that's no shade, but I'm just specifying why certain things are left loose-ended here with y'all's readings. And it's because Spirit is emphasizing want, okay, which is also desire, okay? Spirit is specifying desire versus need versus value versus will. And the necessity to not put those things at war, but to integrate them. And it's giving, starting with being honest about your desires, your strong desires, so that you can be more honest about what you truly value. Because you can want some shit all day, you can need some shit all day, you can have some will somewhere in you, but if you don't have clarity of your values, you're gonna just be willing all over the damn place, being a walking contradiction, being a walking penny with a hole in it, or whatever, what have you, because you may be saying one thing and doing something else, you know, all of that, facilitating other people's pleasure, thinking that is yours, you know, all of that. And again, like what was said in the previous group, you can want some shit, you can talk about wanting it, needing it, and all that fucking shit, but if you don't truly value the concepts of what surrounds your desires, even as well as your needs, you will not will yourself to do it. Let me say it again. If you do not have value, let alone a strong sense of values, okay? If you don't value your desires, your needs, and the principalities, that's the specifics, right? Okay? There are needs, there are desires, and there are the principalities of them, okay? And if you don't value those concepts, those principalities, you will not will yourself to do it. So an example, which the first group didn't really get, an example that's coming up here with Spirit is speaking, is you may need and desire integrity. You may have a basic understanding of what the definition of integrity is. But if you value the principalities of street code more, then your perspective and your will towards integrity is going to be warped, misdirected, and contradicted. Because in simple terms, you claim you need and desire integrity, but you value the principalities of no snitching, even as it concerns a black man committing domestic violence against a woman, a black woman specifically, okay? If you value the principalities of street code more, your integrity is gonna go out the window and say, oh, why she calling the cops on this black man? You just want to tear a black man down. But if you truly value the principalities of authentic integrity, it don't matter if that man is black, white, Puerto Rican, or Asian. It don't matter if that woman is black, white, Puerto Rican, or Asian, if she's a prostitute, if she's a whole slut, businesswoman, nun, okay, Muslimah, or whatever. It don't matter. If you value the authentic concepts of integrity, right is right and wrong is wrong. But again, if you claim you need and desire integrity, but then you have a problem with people rightfully defending and protecting themselves within reason, just because it's somebody you know, or it's a man, or so whatever. Just like certain people can say, oh, men shouldn't be beating on women, but then they'll see a woman beating on a man, or they'll see two women in relationships beating on each other and they'll excuse it. They'll see two men in a relationship beating on each other and they'll excuse it. Okay? So again, it's one thing to need and desire something, but if your value is not in the authenticity of it, you then become someone who's living a lie. which is the same as being a slave to other people's pleasures and enjoyment, calling it yours, when if it was, you wouldn't be where you at like this here, feeling how you feeling, dealing with what you're dealing with, which is a lot of the same old shit that you've been dealing with over and over and over and over again. And spirit is acknowledging, a part of the reason why y'all have been like stuck in this cycling, and that's why y'all are getting this heads up. That's why y'all have been getting a lot of the heads up. That's why they put those, again, those people that y'all been using as diaries and charge reports and shit. That's why they put those people around y'all, because they've been slowly but surely, and in some ways fast at certain points, giving y'all the heads up, giving y'all the exposure to different things that you need, hoping that you use your free will properly. But they keep saying that a lot of you all are just not. You're becoming what you despise, steady using your traumas as an excuse to not take ownership over yourself, over your life, over your own healing, making your traumas your identity, your character, your end all be all. Not truly believing in yourself, that you can do different, that you can heal, that you can choose yourself. And so again, that's why they lining it up like this here. Because when these tower moments happen, it's going to be on you to truly make the decision where your values lie. Because if you can't make a strong decision about your values, who you value and what you value, and you end up misusing your free will again, whatever happens over the next, I'm hearing 13 to 20 years, that's going to be your own damn fault, and you ain't going to have nobody else to blame. And I believe it's about that time where I remind y'all, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Y'all go fishing, baby. And with all that being said, child, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you feel synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe, so that you can be one of the first to be back through these winlet quarters for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in always light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.